In this week's episode, we're going to look at how to find your coaching niche. Before I start explaining how to find your niche, let's just get rid of a couple of, well, I think they're myths that surround this idea of a niche. Number one, that you don't need a niche. Well, you absolutely do. You can either cast your net wide and try to appeal to absolutely everybody, but when you get sick of doing that, come back and have a look at how to niche, because casting your net wide whilst it feels like the right thing to do is categorically the wrong thing to do, and it won't attract clients. The second thing is that your niche will somehow appear to you. It will find you. Now, I think this has come from a book called The Prosperous Coach. I think The Prosperous Coach is a very good book as far as coaching is concerned, but I have my doubts about it as a marketing book for coaches. And the reason for that is that I live in a world where people need to earn a living, where they need to keep the lights on, put food on their table, etc. And if they want to create a coaching business, they need to create a coaching business that's going to earn them an income as quickly as possible. Now, it isn't a quick thing, marketing a coaching business. It is a process, not an event. But sitting back and coaching people for free for a few years in order that you can then reflect on who you powerfully served the most and which of them might be your niche, this magical reveal, that's not a world that either me or my clients exist in. Your niche is a choice. It's not something that will reveal itself to you, it is a choice. The third thing that I want to just get out of the way is this idea that an ideal client and a niche are the same thing. They're not. A niche is a subsection of society that is a group of people that you are very familiar with. Now, that could be a particular industry, it could be a particular group of people that share a hobby or that share a passion, but it's a subset of the human race. An ideal client is a work of fiction. They are a person that you create who exists within the niche that you have chosen, who becomes the focus of all of your marketing. So that's the difference between the two. So how do you find your niche? I spoke to a coach recently and I asked her what a niche was, and she told me it was women. Now, women isn't a niche. Women is half a population. There are, let's say 8 billion people walking the earth, 4 billion of them, just over, are women. That's not a niche. So if we imagine an old-fashioned kitchen funnel, at the top of that funnel it's the widest part and it's got the most people in it. This is the funnel that you're going to use to define your niche. So at the top we have women. Now, let's move down that funnel a little bit and let's start to narrow that subsection called women. What about women in business? Brilliant. Right, we need to get clearer than that. When we say women in business, do we mean women who work within a commercial environment, so they could be employed or they could have their own business, or do we mean women who have their own business? Let's go with women who have their own business. So now we have moved away, the women who work for somebody else, they're no longer part of our niche, and we're now saying that our niche is women who have their own business. Perfect, right? Wrong. Within that niche of women who have their own business, there are a wide variety of different kinds of women and different kinds of businesses. So for example, we have at one end of the spectrum, women who own multinational global companies that manufacture products and ship them all over the world worth billions. And at the other end, we have women who work from home, from their kitchen table, making left-handed widgets that they sell at local craft markets. They are both women in business. But if you think about what those two women might need to hear in order to understand why they might want coaching, it's starting to become apparent that they would need to hear very different things, okay? So if we go to this end and we say not women who are making left-handed widgets that they sell at craft fairs, but let's say women who work from home, they have a service-based business and their turnover is under £100,000 a year. That's a niche. Can you see that if you said at, for example, a networking event, I work with women who run home-based businesses that turn over less than 100,000 a year, if there was somebody in that room that fitted that profile, they'd go, oh, she's talking about me. And if there wasn't anyone in that room who fitted that profile, people who were in that room would think, oh, she's talking about my wife, my sister, my best friend, my colleague. And so it begins. So the process of helping your ideal client to identify themselves as your potential coaching client begins. I've given you the example that you come down and down and down and eventually you get really specific. So how do you get specific? How do you choose your coaching niche? Well, as I alluded to earlier, you have to have a think about what you know. If you are an experienced coach and you've worked with lots of people, sit down and make a list of 6 or 10 of the clients who set your heart on fire. The ones that when you saw their name in your diary and you knew you were going to be working with them today, you went, oh yes, fantastic. Make a list and then sit down and work out what those people have got in common. What was it about that coaching experience that made you love it so much? Now I know that you're going, oh, I couldn't possibly. They have nothing in common. They're all completely different. So bear with me. Accept that they absolutely do have something in common. For a start, they're all human, right? And start from there. Now, if you don't have a lot of experience of coaching yet, if the people that you've been coaching so far have been from your coaching course and some of your hours that you're getting under your belt so they didn't pay you, then your route to finding your niche is slightly different. Now, one of the reasons that you need a niche is because you need to be able to identify the kind of client that you want to work with, and that client will exist within the niche. Now, different kinds of clients speak different kinds of languages. I've talked about coach speak and client speak before in videos, but this is where this comes from. All industries and all groups of people have jargon, and jargon isn't designed to be inclusive. It's designed to keep people out. If you don't speak our language, you're not one of us. So let me give you some examples. If you're looking at people who work within technology, they have a massive set of jargon that means something to them but doesn't mean very much to people on the outside. And so if you're having a conversation with a techie and you're a non-techie, they very quickly know that you're a non-techie because you're using the wrong terms and the wrong acronyms and you're not quite using their language to explain the situation. Now, the same exists in all industries and sectors and groups of people that hang out together. And so it's really good if you can choose a niche where you already speak the language. Now, for some of you, this could be a challenge. Where you've left an industry because you burnt out or because you had a really bad experience of one type or another, I understand that you're very reluctant to think of working with that industry or going back to that industry. But before you dismiss it, let me just make a point here. If you worked within the legal profession, you speak legalese and you can talk to other lawyers in a way that puts you in a category that goes, they're one of us. And that is really, really important. Likewise, you can understand problems that people within the industry that you've come from have without them having to go into great detail about it. So if, for example, we look at the technical industry, the IT, if you know that a P1 security problem is a massive problem that has a 15-minute response time and a 4-hour find a solution time, then you don't have to waste any of a coaching conversation having your client explain that to you. You're just there. And equally, when you're talking in your marketing message, you can express understanding for your client and the problems that they face from a position of understanding. And that's important. It's important that you speak your client's language. So if you already speak the language of a particular subset of people, that's a really good place to start to look. If you are absolutely convinced that this is not for you, that you don't want to go back and work within an industry where you were once burned, then there is another route to finding an ideal client. And that is, what were you doing when you found coaching? What was going on in your life and what did coaching resolve for you? Now, we know as coaches that coaching is transformational. And the reason that we know that is that our lives have been transformed by it. So, what was the younger version of you struggling with? What was keeping you awake at 3 o'clock in the morning? And that is a good place to start to look for your niche. Remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss a single episode. I really look forward to helping you thrive in your coaching business.